Yay.
Hi guys, sorry.
All right. I think I solved it. Perfect. Success. All right, all right, we're live. How do I get the chat up here? I just need to, oh, there. All right, so I need to go to two places to get it shared, which I thought I had open. Not here. There. Here we go. There's one.
Hello.
Yeah. While I'm running through this, let's introduce ourselves. Allison, can I have you go first?
Hi, I'm Allison. I don't know. I'm part of this book club. I'm sorry, it's so hot. I can't think. I don't know about the rest of you, but it's been like 100 degrees and there's no air conditioning anywhere in my life. So that's all you'll get to know for now.
Oh my god, yeah.
How is there?
I don't like. I work in a
even
really
at
old
work?
building. No, I work in a really old building. I don't even have a screen on my window, and these carpenter bees are drilling holes in all the windows. It's like, it's crazy.
This is kind of about the book.
You work
right? Like this is it. I was having this conversation today where it was like there's some thought piece article, I think it was in the New York Times, where they were like, we just can't figure out how to solve this problem of people not wanting to go to work. and it just like all these people would rather do these slightly higher paying, more or the reasonable houred service jobs than work anywhere else. We can't figure out how to solve it.
Well, I work at a university, so soon I might not have a job, so we'll see.
Yeah.
We just got the email about possible layoffs. So.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, what's their endowment?
Yeah.
You know it?
I probably shouldn't talk about it here.
All right. Fair enough.
Well,
$10 billion.
Oh, nice.
Fuck their layoffs. That's what I have to say about that. So dumb.
I'm Ashar, also in the book club. I usually, so far we've done 2 cycles. I always pick the nonfiction piece. So this is my pick. And for me, it's relevant because I do quite a bit of, not organizing, but I'm organized by other people. And I've seen all this stuff happen that they describe. So I kind of needed to read the book to understand those dynamics. And then Dan.
I am Daniel Andrew Boyd. I run Storyluck, the nonprofit that puts this together. And I am running around to the different Facebook groups to share that we are officially live.
Cool.
I am excited to listen in because we did a little bit of talk on this earlier where Ashar helped us muscle through and understand what this is all about. And I feel like it's going to be an even better discussion the second time around.
Well, I can just give the intro, like the 2-minute intro.
Yeah, that's great.
So, basically the GOP. I mean, this is overtly political, and we're going to be talking about right and left, and we're even going to include Democrats on the left. But the GOP has a majority in Congress, and it's in control of the White House and the Supreme Court. And Trump has triumphed again, and we're at war with Iran because of WMD. So it's like the whole thing again. And the left seems pretty disempowered, like act of war not even passed through Congress. What's the left to do? So there's all this talk about disempowerment on the left. I just looked up a few headlines because you see these headlines all the time in the news. While Dems flounder, GOP speeds toward more wins. Democrats are drifting dangerously out of sync with the American people. The failures Democrats must confront. So this book is about building power. I kept thinking the title was Hegemony Now, like George Costanza was like yelling. It's Hegemony How To. And so basically it's kind of, as its centerpiece, contemplating the Occupy Wall Street movement as for its failures, its successes, and then what are the lessons from it. So the author, Jonathan Matthew Smucker, didn't go to college until he was 30, or in his 30s, and he's from a working class background, and he was heavily involved in Occupy. But that's a movement that had a huge, public support. It was famous for...
Real quick, you have to show me the cover of your book again.
Did we read the wrong book?
Oh, what? Is there a book called Hegemony Now?
Yes, and I read it. Oh my God, Asher!
Weird.
I was wondering. I looked up these two authors.
It's like
they had nothing to do with Occupy.
We spent so much time discussing this. I've been saying now the entire time.
I was like, I think Dan's a little bit too hard on the author. I don't think he's that wishy-washy.
Oh
my God, Asher. Now I'm going to read this other book.
Their covers are exactly the same.
Oh, really?
Wait, I want to screenshot it. It's red. It's called How Big Tech and Wall Street Won the World and How We Win It Back.
Who wrote it?
Jeremy Gilbert and Alex Williams, and they're British. And
weird.
Oh my God.
Sorry. So weird, because we had a conversation prior to this where we didn't pick up on that. So maybe we did read the same book. It's just different.
No. I can't believe you didn't call me out because I was reading passages of the book to you.
I think they're very similar.
And you were like, I didn't read it. I didn't read it with such a fine-tooth comb.
Oh,
right.
shit.
All right. This is hilarious.
Oh my God. This book is the book you read is probably so much better, Asher.
It's also hilarious because it's the same title. Like the postscript is, instead of how to, it's how big tech and Wall Street won the world and we're going to win it back.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we can still talk about...
Who are your authors?
Mine?
Jonathan Matthew Smucker.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think Asher can still give us the overview of this book, and maybe we can tie this
about hegemony.
Yeah.
Oh my.
We read 2 books. We're bringing 2 books worth of knowledge to this book.
Maybe this is actually how we're going to do it from now on.
Yeah.
We all read different books. This is terrifying to me.
I know. I feel like my world is rocked.
Somebody proposes a book, and then we find a book that rhymes with the title of the proposed book, and we just read that one.
Oh my God.
This is why we're the kids stuck in detention.
We all had different homework.
Oh. And reading Hegemony Now really was like being in detention.
Oh, it was bad. You guys were very
It wasn't bad. It was very academic, like very heavy theory.
I'm gonna go. I've been telling people for months that it's the worst book that I've ever read.
That could be true. I mean, that's true. But it's not the book I read.
Yes, or that you wanted us to read.
Yeah, let's hear your overview, Asher. I'm very excited.
All right.
Okay, so Occupy Wall Street, we remember as this thing that was publicly pretty popular, had a lot of buy-in initially, and it popularized the idea of the 99%. We are the 99%, which, like Chomsky said many years prior, but now they actually made it a hegemonic slogan because it became common sense. And so that's what hegemony is. It's like, Dan, I think you said, it's like the rules under which we all operate, the kind of assumptions, the myths. It's what's common sense. So Occupy was really popular when it came out. It that had that common sense idea, but then it became very much about people need to show up and occupy. They need to like drop what they're doing, sit, do the human microphone, learn all the terminology, make a little town in their hometown or in Zuccotti Park or whatever. And that started to be the goal of the movement rather than building power and changing policy. And so one huge critique of Occupy is that it had no policy, and that's how it was discredited. There were leaders within it working on policy, but there was also this underlying sense that if you get into that aspect of building power, you're kind of a sellout, because the people who want power, those are the bad guys. Like, those are the political opposition. And we're all about love and like liking people and all the values that are on the left. But what this book argues is that in order for a movement to be effective, it has to not be afraid of power. The left has traditionally been afraid of power. So basically the book is in two parts. One is how not to engage power, all the failures of Occupy, and then the second part is how to engage power. So I can walk through that. You can also talk about what your book talked about. Hegemony Now.
Hegemony Now emphasized kind of like the infrastructure of hegemony, and how even though now a lot of people are, because they talked a lot about like either coercion or consent, active consent or passive consent. And it was saying that like a lot of people now are very, skeptical of neoliberalism and its values, and they don't accept it as common sense anymore necessarily. And they're kind of like entrapped and enmeshed in it because of all of the big tech, big finance. It's like, even though it's dying in a way and people are questioning it and they're not trusting experts, and like kind of all of the taken for granted things of neoliberalism, globalism and ever expanding kind of like consumption and that kind of stuff, even though people are not buying in as much, the infrastructure is so baked in that it's like they compared it to us like kind of living inside of a dying animal or something like that. So anyway, they did talk a lot about how it would be important to kind of form like blocks and assemblages and coalitions with people of various like leanings and backgrounds. But people would have to think about like interests in that, like what are our interests that can kind of, that we have in common across these different kind of political backgrounds. So, but weirdly, they did not talk at all about Occupy. And I actually read a review that critiqued them for that, for leaving it out. They kind of said like, oh, it's like the 80s and neoliberalism and the long 90s. And then we had the crash of 2008, but there really wasn't any big response to that until like 2016 when Trump was elected, and Brexit and stuff like that. So it's weird that they left it out. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's funny, because I hated the book so much that I ended up reading another book that was the history of neoliberalism, and it really made Occupy a central figure of that book.
Oh wow. I think it's important to pause on that, because it was so dismissed by the media and kind of looking back on it, but it is important because it did it changed the political conversation.
Yeah. It was also really early on. It was like the first big protest where they tried the new technique that everybody does now of saying, we don't have any demands. We're not going to name the thing. You have to just keep us in the conversation and, you know, start guessing and making the other people start bringing things. So it's like their ideas to come up, because as soon as you give a demand as to like, this is the exact thing I want, there's a whole slew of responses of why we can't give that to you, or, you know, blah, blah, blah.
I love that.
The other thing that I want to point out about the book we read and that I've been promoting mildly for 2 months is that they had read and I believe translated some works, and I'm going to fail here, but Gramsci?
Gramsci.
Yeah.
Gramsci. Yeah. And so that was like the main person they were leaning on.
Yeah.
In
this
terms.
book,
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I think because he wrote so much about hegemony. So one of the main like points of hegemony how-to is Gramsci's concept of articulation, which means finding the common basis of identity for a movement of power. So it seems like coalition building with your book, it was talking about that. But it says it requires, so Gramsci would not say, don't have any demands. Or Gramsci would say you have to have the institutional piece of your strategy, because you want policy change, and you also have the symbolic piece of the strategy where you're winning over the hearts and minds, and you're reshaping who the we is that is demanding power, and that is the majority. So the civil rights movement had both, because they signed the several civil rights acts into law, but then they also had the symbolic part where you have Martin Luther King emerging as this big figure, and people getting on board with his message. So he had both, but Occupy did not. It only had the symbolic piece. It didn't have the institutional piece.
Yeah.
I guess don't you sort of see that with this like No Kings kind of protest? Like,
yeah,
not as, it's sort of just like, and I feel like that's too much with Democrats lately. We're against that. We're in opposition to that, but without kind of presenting what they're for.
Right. It's there to show that we're the 99% again. But what are the policy goals? There aren't any named. Which is why, I mean, partly I'm also reading this because I've been campaigning for Zoran Mamdani in the New York City mayoral primary, the Democratic primary, which is tomorrow.
Good luck.
So, yeah. I've enjoyed doing that because there are policy, changes that we expect to get if he becomes mayor, namely a rent freeze, which we need after having our rent go up 9% in 3 years. But another concept that the book talks about is the activist, and how that is sort of set aside as a special, particular type of person. But the problem with that concept, which originally was the opposite of the pacifist in World War I, the problem with that concept is it presumes that an activist is like, special, set apart, too radical, and it's a kind of exclusionary concept. But really, anybody who cares about their future, their ability to afford their lifestyle, like anybody like that could step into the role of a politically mobilized person. So basically, he's just trying to, in this book, convince radicals that you want to open the clubhouse as much as possible. So stop insisting on jargon, stop insisting on everybody having the same political analysis as you. Stop insisting that power is a 4-letter word, and talk to people where they're at, listen to them. Don't presume that people make rational decisions, because they don't. So you need to be able to tell compelling stories and engage with their emotions. And the right has already figured all this out, and they've been doing it all along. So we have to do it too. And yeah, so I'm not on the right. Sorry. I do know that, like, this conversation, I felt a little bad picking this book because it's like, if there are right-leaning people in the book club or like tuning in, then this is not, I guess, the book for you because you've already figured it out on your side.
I think it's worth discussing. That is so much clearer than the book Allison and I read. Because the last couple chapters are basically supposed to be the same thing, where they're like, this is how you accept it. And I'm just going to keep hitting on this, but Allison and I had some discussions where Allison was like, I'm not sure that the ideas in the book are good. And I'm like, yeah, Ashar has good ideas and they're just coming from her own brain, and then she's applying them to this stupid fucking book. She's just reading into it because it's written so dumb that you can just glom any good idea to it.
What?
Yeah.
Was this going to be intervention, detention?
Yeah. Yeah. Instead, we're the ones who need the intervention.
I think no, we both felt bad because we were reading because this book was so academic that I had to read along with my finger like this so that I could focus on the sentences. But and I'm not going to be the best at summarizing this book, but there are a few points from it that really did resonate with me. And one thing I'm thinking about when you talk about like opening the club and such is that it did, I think, I liked that it gave sort of a history of how neoliberalism replaced this kind of like, what did they call it? It was like called neo-Fordism, like when people when workers had a lot of power in their, big corporations, and it kind of like, I don't know. But anyway, they were talking about how people like over the years have gotten to feel more empowered as consumers, and how that kind of identity and sense of autonomy has replaced like, kind of their being active citizens. And I feel that way for sure. Like, I feel like, oh, I can't be an activist because I don't keep up enough with politics. But it's not just that, it's also that people, there's such precarity in the workforce now, and people are piecing together these gig jobs, and like, it's hard to survive. I mean, inflation and like everything else. So people have just less capacity for activism, and it's just difficult.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And it's like, what can we do about that? And I think when you're in that kind of tired space and you're vulnerable, it is going to be emotions that are speaking more to you. And I think that on the right, so many people do feel like shut out, and like, like they feel talked down to by liberals, or like, I don't know. I think liberalism has come to seem like the party of the like hyper educated and that kind of thing. I want to find like what common ground there is. It's out there, I know,
Well, I think the common ground that I saw in all these books, and I also read Careless People, which is the expose tell all about working at Facebook. I read The Trading Game, which was a tell all about working on Wall Street for, I think it was SBC. Oh no, it was the Bank of America. He was working for Bank of America. And even I read The Capitalist Manifesto, which recently came out, which you would think would be like rah on the right. But all the thread through all of this is that even if people can't articulate it, there is the sense of it is broken. It's not working. And definitely through the Biden administration, and all of the neoliberalism talk is it's working. They have a sort of rational optimist projection where they're like, look at 100 years ago. Look, take the long view. Everything's good. Progress is going, and
Yeah,
connecting
capitalism
it.
is the only thing that's ever worked.
Yeah, yeah. And the Capitalist Manifesto attacked that idea where he was saying neoliberalism is actually crony capitalism, right? Where you are letting people be too big to fail, and that quickly turns into too big to jail. And you can look at I'm gonna screw it up, but when like the Frank Dodd stuff came out, people who were doing mortgage-backed security fraud and stuff of that nature went to jail. We sent billionaires and 100 millionaires to jail for defrauding the stock market, and we haven't since basically Enron. All of a sudden, these people are doing much bigger scams, much more blatantly. You know, you have the Elon Musk saying that he sold Tesla for $400 a share. It goes immediately to 400, and then it's like, oh, I actually didn't do that, and then it tanks. That is illegal. We can all see that, but those people aren't getting in trouble anymore. Under quote unquote, you know, the ideal of capitalism, the government needs to enforce those sorts of rules.
Right. Catherine Liu also talks about gangster capitalism, which is, I'm trying to think of an example, but it's just sort of like you're coerced into participating, you're coerced into paying fees, paying subscriptions. There's like, you're going to get effed over no matter what, but you have to participate. I had an example of that, but I forget now.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like grocery shopping is like that now, right? It's like, oh, we're gonna jack up the prices on everything unless you download our app, and then you have to clip the coupon on the app, and then you have to present it to us at the thing, and all of these are just ways to make it so annoying that you say, I'm going to pay $5 for strawberries rather than get out my phone and do all these things. Right. Yeah. And that is just like strong arming you. And those sorts of tactics are happening all over.
Yeah.
Another one that I'll point out is Google right now is so aggressive about asking you to upgrade to, you're almost out of data. I have like 60% free data, and they send me these notifications. They're pop-ups. They're in reds. It's an emergency. You're about to run out of your Gmail space. You know, I have, out of 15 gigs, I have 10 gigs left or something ridiculous. And they're sending me these messages every single day.
Yeah, it's the same.
Right? It's just annoying. And it would be, and they're like, it's only $1. Yeah. And it gets to be the point where you're like, it would be worth $1 to me for you to not bug me.
Yes.
And that's the gangster move.
Yeah.
We're going to make it so annoying to use our product unless you pay us to stop being annoying.
Yeah.
We're not giving you something that you need. We're just going to stop annoying you.
And that also further wears down our capacity to want to be activists if we can't even buy fucking groceries without like, or even like things like, you know, your 401k, you need it, but you don't know what your money's being invested in, and maybe you don't want your money invested in whatever they're investing it in, but you are kind of locked in, and so many things feel that way.
Yeah.
The hoops you have to go to invest your own money in your 401k. Right. And there are all these like, oh, we're going to give you 1,000 million options. all of them are worse than just putting it in the S&P 500 and letting it sit there. But and that is, you can get to that, but you got to talk to your HR person. You've got to like say, no, I don't want all these. I don't want the risky investment. I don't want the medium investment. I don't want the low investment. I just want this specific stock.
Yeah. But also that the retirement is up to us instead of a pension.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It's a total.
We spent our entire life's energy working for you, but there's no retirement at the end of that. That's for us to do now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like neoliberal capitalism and what comes after it is there's no longer a technocracy in place. And I think this goes to what Allison was talking about with the collapse of knowledge systems, like the slopification and shittification of everything. The products to sell us are not good. Like, who wants this AI crap? But there was this kind of sense that capitalism is, along with that comes research, comes good decisions, like the investors have some kind of interest in the public, but actually they only have an interest in the next quarter and raising profits. So that drives everything. There is no research that's being done to just, solve hunger. Like, there are so many problems that we need to solve, but instead we have companies like Meta offering $100 million salaries to people to come over from Google or OpenAI or whatever to work on their AI project. So it doesn't serve anybody.
No.
Yeah,
about the knowledge system thing.
Yeah, in the system, there's like all, thinking about it, there's all these little moments in my life where I think, oh, this gives me so much value. But we don't have any mechanism to reward people for doing those sorts of things, like the little charity works. One of them that I talked to you guys about was this idea of I go out and run in the morning, and no matter where I am, basically from 8 a.m. to noon, there's this woman who gets on her bike, and she's in retirement, and she just says, "You're doing great," to anybody she passes, and everybody ends up just like elated. She's coming if you're running the other way, because you see these like smiling faces, and that this little old lady had like cheered them on. Well, how would you ever in a neoliberal system ever reward that in a like monetary way?
Yeah.
Some of the discussions in all of these books that I'm reading lead me to feel like, what is the thought outside the box of even that, where it's like, how do we shift values away from money?
Yeah.
Does that feel
actually broken? That's what's broken, is that everything is about profit for the next quarter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's awful. Like, I mean, going to any like big box store these days is an awful experience. There's no one there to help you. You have to use the stupid checkout machine yourself. You're struggling with it. You're like, I'm not working right now. Why do I have to operate this machine? That's like, it makes you feel so isolated and like alone, and it just makes you not want to spend money in the store, but you're like, well, I need this glue or whatever. Like, I don't know.
And that's so they don't have to pay some worker.
Yeah,
I have
it's like the exchange with the worker it means something. It does.
I have a 30-minute rant about this, which I'm not going to get into, but I don't shop at Jewel Osco anymore because I had so many bad experiences at the self-checkout at the one in Old Town. And in the end, I was like, I have to say something, and this was part of it. Another sort of form of gangster capitalism, like this is a different take on it, but I think it still fits as to why it's gangster, is like these people signed up to be cashiers. And
Where is that coming from?
there,
Oh, there it is.
they signed up to be cashiers, and now they are underpaid security guards, right?
Oh.
Everybody who works at the whatchamacallit, like that, they're like, that wasn't my job description, and now I have to be this police person, and I have all these annoying interactions that I don't want to have anymore. And I was sort of having that discussion with a manager, being like, you know, I just want to put in my 2 cents. And he was like, that's just your opinion, man. and I was like,
disempowered. He doesn't make those decisions either.
Well, I was trying to like get that angle to him to just be like, I just like pass up the complaint up the chain. And he's like, how about you never shop here again? Because we don't need your money.
Yeah.
I've got thousands of people who come here every day and they don't complain like you. And I was like, all right, you sold me.
Yeah.
I'm never coming back.
I'm with Susan, like, and you don't refuse.
But Susan, I'm thinking of the Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever. They only have the self-checkout open. That is the only option. Because usually I'm like, I will die on this hill. I'm not using your checkout machine, but they make you do it.
Yeah.
And I always walk up to it like, I don't want to do it.
One of the mayoral debate questions for the primary election a few weeks ago was about how at CVS everything's locked up, and so in order to get your deodorant or whatever, you have to like ring a bell and wait for one of 2 staff people to come and unlock the door and like give you the thing you want. And so nobody likes that. And so the question for the candidates was, what do you propose doing about it? And everyone was like, more police, more police, more police. And Zoran was like, I think that's a company problem. Like, they need to hire more staff so that there's more people in the store with eyes. I mean, that's not a security job. It's just like, if there's more staff, there's going to be less likelihood that people are stealing. And then they wouldn't have to lock things up. So pay your workers, hire more workers. That's a company problem. Why should that be the city's problem? Why should we use taxpayer dollars to solve their cheap ass mentality? And that's another example of gangster capitalism. That they're shutting down the city because they don't want to pay workers.
Yes.
And then like, and small companies and new businesses can't compete and get in there with better service because these things are so big and huge and they can't fail, and they don't even care if you shop there anymore. And it makes you just want to order things online, even though you don't want to do that either. And our towns don't even have any stores anymore. It makes you feel like you're just...
Why are people here? It's like, they don't need workers. They don't need clients.
Yeah.
We're all dispensable.
Yeah.
So it's broken.
It's all broken.
Mm-hmm.
And then you think about like going to college, and they're talking about, I read an article today about how computer science degrees are just like basically becoming pretty useless now because, you know, AI is just going to do all the jobs.
Yeah, but also like that's the narrative this corporate class wants to try to push, right?
Yeah.
Again, because it's like a little bit gangster. If we devalue you and your self-worth and all your hard work, we won't have to pay you. That's the real key. We want you to continue to do the work because like this stuff can't do itself. You still got to prompt it. You still got to check for its hallucinations. You got to do that. And that's all what the writer's strike was about 2 years ago, where they were like, these Nimrod CEOs and vice presidents are going to ChatGPT and saying, write me a script. And then they'll give us a script and be like, fix it. Oh, we don't have to pay you because this other person like actually did the writing. They're like, starting from scratch would be easier than going through and fixing this word salad that you handed me. You can't just hand me word salad and then say, I didn't write the script.
Yeah.
Totally.
So the right's political analysis is like, things are broken, you're not happy. And the
Yes.
left political analysis is, we're the experts, let us handle it. And so which narrative do you prefer? I mean, people prefer when their problems are acknowledged. It's just that when the right, they don't, they're good populist speakers, but they don't really do
Really implement
policy.
that
They
policy.
don't policy.
Yeah.
So if you can have,
You know, he'll say he's the dove president over and over again. I didn't start any wars. I'll never start a war. I'll never, you know, so on and so on. And then as soon as he's in office, he's like, let's go take on Canada. Let's invade Greenland. Which is all a ruse to get us ready so we can bomb these people. Like, it's bonkers.
He's the AI slop president. Like,
for sure.
He's amazing. It's crazy. So I am interested in this, the idea of, so Allison was like, sent us this article on knowledge system decline. And I thought that was a really interesting idea. Our knowledge system is collapsing. Like, we can't really tell the difference anymore between real audio and AI generated audio, real photographs and fake videos, etc. So that kind of line between real and fabricated is diminishing. And a lot of us can tell the difference now, but who knows, might get better. But a lot of people can't tell the difference because they're not media literate. And so people lose trust in media, in evidence, in expertise. We're seeing that this is the presidential administration of hatred of expertise because that it contradicts whatever they want to say about whatever. And so you wrote that you fear, as people lose trust in these kinds of institutions, the inclination is to look for a strong man or turn to misinformation and conspiracy. But it's like, we're having a knowledge systems collapse. What is going to come up on the other side? And the person writing that article thought that we're in for like a new romanticism where we just reject all of that. We reject AI, we reject the technocracy, we reject the experts, and we replace them with kind of like art or folk expertise. So I wondered what you all thought would be the next thing once we overturn the technocracy such as it is.
Like, I tend that way myself. I mean, I feel like I live in a small enough place where I can find people who they kind of share, I don't know, they share resources with me, like maybe some alternate place to buy something, or maybe we trade, we help each other with things around the house or whatever. And I don't know, more like I find myself, and this might just be getting older too, but like I don't online shop anymore so much. I don't like spend my time looking for things to buy. I'm just gonna keep wearing these clothes until they literally like fall off, or I'm just gonna keep using this thing and it looks stupid and I don't care. And just trying to find like sources of like pleasure and happiness and love that are kind of not necessarily material, I guess. And I suppose like hoping to spark curiosity about that in other people, I guess, that I meet that are still like very much in that consumer kind of mentality. But I don't know that that's going to appeal to everyone. Go to the library, I don't know, that kind of thing. Nature.
What do you think, Dan?
I am a doomer now. I'm so upset with the situation at hand and the erosion of what I thought of as sort of American societal norms. And people think that I'm naive about that, but yeah, I think for me, my thought process is like, when this gets to its next thing, I think the next thing is way worse. And whether it's sort of Russian style oligarchy or a splitting up of the United States into more of a feudalism, which I see a lot of their thinkers starting to write about, where states become owned by corporations and everything is profit oriented, and it's just try to stop us from polluting. You'll never be able to. The thing that I think about is, with my mindset and who I am, how do I avoid being thrown in jail in that society? And how do I just like have them figure out a baseline of happiness and a resistance to that, which ends up being a similar thing to Allison, where it's like this sort of stuff is just like hold on to more community and try to interact more. I'm like trying a lot harder to be friendly with the 300 people in my building. I'm always pretty good about like saying hi or doing small talk, but I'm showing up to the little parties. I'm inviting people to do things. That's sort of my right now, my first line of defense is like, okay, how do I create community in the building that I'm in right now?
Yeah.
Good.
Too, like instead of going to so many protests, I go to my community garden and like meet people and learn something about growing food in that way. Sean says, just listen to a good podcast about how the eye turner has changed over time. The internet, thank you. And how much it sucks now, yeah, and how it, in many ways we are in a sort of techno-feudalism,
Yeah, I am very big on saying like we have this enshittification is very real.
Yeah.
It is not us being old people yelling at clouds. It's different in that, because it's akin to this gangsterism where they're like, oh, we used to build products, now it's a subscription. Now we make you jump through 100 million hoops to end the subscription once you get on it.
Yeah.
And so much is just trash. It's like trying to like shift through the trash to get to any kind of content. It's not worth the time often.
I think it's kind of a relief, because if it really does get so bad, I think people will turn away from it. And what will
I think that's happening, right? Maybe, I mean, like something like Facebook, it's such trash now. I think a lot of people have just stopped using it altogether, and it's like some weird ghost town where weird things are just, enshittification is real.
That's why you have Mark Zuckerberg offering $100 million salaries to anyone who come to his company, because it's a sinking ship.
Yeah,
people don't want to be there.
Yeah.
But
it's not going to take our jobs. It's not the future. It doesn't work. And basically, employees at companies that have subscribed to AI products are basically too afraid to tell their bosses that the emperor has no clothes. Like, I talk to people who their job is implementing these AI products that their bosses have chosen to purchase. And they're just like, these things don't really work, but we just kind of have to pretend that they do because we've already invested.
They're so into it. Yeah. It's sort of like back with the NFT thing. All these companies were like, how do we implement this NFT technology? And just like completely not understanding an even larger emperor's no clothes situation. I'll push back a little bit AI has been great for me.
Mhm.
I am a big fan, and it is interesting how polarizing it is. The programmers I know are getting so much value out of it. And part of the issue is a level of, you need a pretty good level of expertise to use it.
Mhm.
And
That's
it isn't about prompt engineering, so to say. It's right. You don't need expertise in how to use it. You need expertise in the field you're working on
Mhm.
in order to have this payoff. There's a study going around about how it's really affecting the way we think. The majority of people who use it, and about, you know, we're taking it at face value. It goes to what you were saying, Ashar, about how it erodes trust because of the hallucinations. And right now, having it at the top of Google is so frustrating.
Mm.
Because it's always giving you wrong information. And for me on my phone, the scroll to get past it
Quite long.
is quite long. And then after I get past it, I have to get past the ads. So a lot of times I'm like, I struggle with this impetus to be like, well, I'll take the lie because it's too much work to click on the thing. But in my own work, I am so much smarter because I have these little conversations and I end up going deeper, where I look into like, oh, why are you suggesting this? Give me a bunch of other examples. And these are just the immediate feedback loop has really increased my skill as a writer. Similarly, all the programmers I know who are using it are just like, it's worth $200 a month. I'm moving so much faster. I'm learning so much. I'm getting so much done.
Hate the pressure to use AI and the assumption that it will be a good thing, because I'm kind of like, I don't do like rocket science work. I do administrative work. And I mean, I don't just want to be like a naysayer, but like I write emails just fine. I ask questions just fine. I create my simple spreadsheets. To me, it would be like taking I don't know, some kind of like really high-powered tool, like some kind of like simple work. And who knows, I could gain efficiencies if I did that, but I don't want to. I don't want to be like, oh, I can gain efficiencies so I could make more work for myself to do. I don't know. I'm just like, must we always be doing this? And also I'll be like putting people out of jobs, because like that's the reality. They want us to use it so that when people retire, we don't replace them, because now we can do 3 jobs at once, you
That's
know?
so short-sighted though, because there was a reason. I want to respond to Sean's stuff too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a recent episode of the podcast Better Offline, a interview with somebody who worked for Microsoft or Google, and he was just like, when you ask AI to generate some code for you, even if you give it the same prompt, it will do it differently every time. And that is a problem for coding, because you want it to be the same chunk of code every time so that you can move it around. But if it's different every time, as time goes on and bugs accumulate, trying to go and debug is going to be really hard. So it's just, in order to do that too, you need to have had all the experience of an engineer going through your career. If they wipe out the entry-level engineers, you're not going to get people with experience. They're still going to need to replace the retirees, but they're not going to have anyone to have the experience.
Who can do that
Again,
work?
it's broken.
Yeah.
So, Sean, I think, if you want to leave the US, you can watch from the sidelines what happened. I think that, what the US is undergoing right now is what we've inflicted on other countries for decades. We now have a gangster administration that doesn't abide the rule of law. And that's what we've done to other places. After they've elected their leaders, we send in the CIA to turn everything to shit. And so now we're getting a taste of that. So I think that's good, actually, for America. Because, and I don't know what's going to happen, but maybe if we can connect the dots, if we could learn our history, if we can understand who we are, I think that we will be in a better place coming out of this. But if
Yeah,
you can do it.
I think the side question too is like, sometimes, well, you know, I hate using Facebook, but I'm not going to be able to see you guys stream.
Oh, it's broken.
You
Speaking of,
Yeah,
things being
probably.
broken.
Good for what? Capitalism. I like that.
Yeah.
You're back. You're back. You were frozen for a minute.
Yeah, the Twitch is Amazon, so they're the three, you know, arguably largest. And like, if we're saying this stuff is bad and we should start opting out more, I don't know if I'm saying, I don't think I'm saying opt out. But what I want is policy, right?
Mhm.
I feel like that's
Yeah.
a big part of the book you read,
Mm-hmm.
is this idea of focus on policy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you got to do both. You got to talk to people and you have to have policy goals. My book is mostly about the social aspect of organizing, which is don't form a club and just hunker down and become all weird with like jargon and club rules and who gets to be in and who gets to be out, because a lot of organizing becomes that kind of a social exercise and then the movement dies. So it's more about like, how do you keep it open, keep listening to people, keep willingness to talk to people who don't agree with you on everything. It's really important.
And I like that comment, the question with the idea that AI and etc. will boost productivity is for who? For what? Efficiency for who? It is your bullshit job. And it is like, I feel like too much in our country doesn't consider people. I mean, that's what it all is. Like Ashar said, it's all profit. And it's like, I mean, I think we could all agree that we would like policy to be created with like people's well-being in mind, like aside from, you know.
Yeah. So on the me rooting for AI side is, especially right now, as it's venture capital funded, it's so cheap for you to use that you can build things for yourself to start automating your own life and create avenues. Like, that's the utopic goal, is that it'll give you leverage that you didn't have before in order to get out from under the system. And
they're always promising that though. Remember once upon a time they promised the shorter work week, but instead we just are like, oh, now we're more productive. Let's add some
let's do more. Sure.
More. Let's get more done.
Which goes to the history of neoliberalism and like these different sects that like came together to create this. And like I'm gonna say his name wrong because I always get it confused with the singer of Tool, but James Keyes.
Maynard Keyes?
Oh, Maynard Keyes.
Yeah.
Maynard
There we
Keyes,
go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what's the Tool guy's name?
It's a Maynard also, but
yeah, I think maybe it's the same.
No, but someone should put it in the chat if they know it.
Yeah, does it? Who?
Maynard
which is
James
which?
Keenan. Maynard James Keenan is the singer of Tool.
And what's the difference? Aren't those the same? I'm dyslexic.
Keynes versus
Keenard.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And their names are reversed. One's James Maynard and one's Maynard James.
Huh. Interesting.
Okay. So anyway, But that guy was the first guy to be like, oh, we're gonna have a like 4 days a week. We're gonna have a 20-hour work week because capitalism is just gonna work for us. Do you think that some of that has happened because in terms of like the bullshit job aspect, where it's like, oh, they have me work, but I'm implementing an AI software that's useless. They have me work, but I can sit around and play Candy Crush.
Wait, what was the first part of your question?
The first part is like, do you think that there's some argument to be made that we have a shorter work week than we used to, but it gets filled with garbage?
I can't give you all my secrets, Stan, but yeah, like I think if people would be willing, if employers would be willing, we could all get the same amount of work done that we needed to get done in a shorter
Yes.
amount of time. But they won't do it because in this country it's all about like, we can't have any freeloaders, and there's just that like Puritan work ethic, and you gotta be working that full time. We gotta squeeze out everything we can get out of you. But that never happens. Like people won't do that, like unless you're maybe in a factory and it's like they can see you working, and
I also think that there's an issue here of like the class warfare where I see a lot of thought pieces about it where it's like, oh, there's class warfare against the rich. But I think that this 40-hour work week is the class warfare against the poor, where it's like, oh, you have this job because you're dumb. You have this job because you deserve this job and you deserve to not be paid. That's a kind of like classism. I see cropping up, I feel like more and more in the rhetoric of people.
And your work has less value than my work.
Yes.
My work is worth a yacht, and your work is worth no health care.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. It's
Asher, do you want to read this example of gangster capitalism from Sean?
So this is about a woman who checked herself into a facility, wanted to leave early, but I'm guessing that insurance...
Is it that they would cover none of her entire stay unless she stayed the whole time?
Yeah. For me, gangster capitalism, as we've been discussing, is more like when they're not just selling you something and that's where the interaction ends, but you kind of have to keep paying in or else. So it's like Amazon will offer you one price, but then it's like, well, you have to subscribe to Prime in order to get that price. Yeah, it's just the way that they kind of keep sucking you in, and you're paying for a kind of maintenance of a relationship. That's the shakedown. You're not paying for a service or a good anymore. You're just sort of like paying to have the thing continue working. The first episode of the new season of Black Mirror is a perfect episode of gangster capitalism. This woman has like something implanted in her to save her life after a car crash, I believe, but it's a subscription device. And so she pays her subscription to stay alive, but then they start running ads and they start offering tiered subscriptions. So she runs ads by speaking the ads. If she pays a little bit more, then she can keep her brain and she doesn't speak ads, but they keep introducing more levels of subscription, and she keeps like having to decide, do I want to say more ads? Do I want to die? Do I want to pay the money? And that is like gangster capitalism.
Yeah. Pay up or we're going to hurt you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it feels like that. It feels like that with a lot of these companies and things like that. That's the feeling. I use Adobe's suite of programs, and it feels like that all the time. It keeps getting like, I used to get all the it was the main thing, that you use on a desktop, and then all their sort of Android apps. And now all the Android apps, if you try to log into them, are like, pay up. It's an extra $5 fee to get into this. Oh, you had all this stuff saved in there? You can't get to it now.
Yeah.
You know, almost the Empire Strikes Back. Pray that I don't change the terms again.
Yeah. Yep.
I think that this has been an awesome conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Even though we read two different
Books.
Who cares? I
Yeah.
really cherish the look on your face, Dan, though, when you.
I know when she said the author's name, I had the weirdest feeling. It's like, what?
Is your book 2 authors?
No.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yours isn't. Yeah.
It's so ridiculous. We also had that moment where I was like, I'm gonna send you this podcast, listening to them talk about this book, Ashar, and you were like, oh, it's his podcast? I want to hear that. And I was like, no, he's just a guest on another podcast. And you were like, no, I don't need to hear that. And if I just would have sent it to you.
Yeah.
So hilarious that you were like,
Sorry, Susan.
you were like Dan just keeps saying it like George Costanza.
I know. It is Hegemony Now, and I can't say it like with any other intonation. I'm always like, Hegemony Now. Can't. Oh man. But Ashar, I really think you should read a couple pages of it so you can see that I read
really
200
what we were
pages
talking
of it.
about.
Oh my God.
I really slogged through it. And it was hard.
Fuck. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I was like, Asher's so smart.
No, I avoid that kind of stuff.
I know, I didn't think you liked it. That's why I was confused. I'm like, there's something here I'm just not getting.
I would not have signed up for a book club. That's just sadistic too. Yeah.
Yeah. I was so mad. I was so mad. All right. How hard is it for me to it is late. Do either of you two want to jump on Discord to see if people want to say hi to us?
I can't.
Okay, let's go to let's go to bed.
Yeah. Good night.
We'll see you guys next week. The next book is The Witcher, The Last Wish. It is the correct book that we're reading.
Let's make sure we have the correct Witcher book, because there are more than
there
one.
there are a lot. And
Yeah.
I will send the book to you two guys. And it's a lot about this. Like, what's the action you need to take to build community and to do the right thing when it's not clear?
Cool.
So,
Great.
cool. Bye.